A recent opinion piece in the Daily Hampshire Gazette by State Representative Lindsay Sabadosa is calling for prison reform in the wake of prison guards being attacked and prisoners being placed in extended lockdown at the state's maximum security prison in Shirley. I asked the Northampton-based representative why she's speaking up about the issue.
I'd been to Sousa twice in recent weeks, and I'd gone at the request of Prisoners Legal Services, an organization based in Boston that advocates for prisoners' issues following the lockdown at Sousa. We know that on January 10th, 3 correctional officers were assaulted, and no one is at any point trying to say that that was a positive thing. I mean, that's horrific. No one should feel unsafe at their job. But at the same time, following this lockdown, we had heard reports of prisoners not having access to attorneys, not having their property, their legal paperwork, and then worst of all, there being assaults on prisoners and unprovoked assaults on prisoners. And so it felt really important to go to the prison to actually confirm and to find out what was happening and to talk to as many people as possible in a really difficult situation. And so the op-ed was kind of the culmination of that work, highlighting that this culture that's existing within our prisons is deeply problematic.
Because as a state representative, you can just show up at the maximum security prison and say, I would like to come in and visit prisoners, right? You don't have to be announced. You don't have to have prior approval. You just show up.
Exactly. And that's what we did. On February 2nd, a group of us went to Sousa one afternoon and we said, we're here. We want to see what's going on.
And I gather from your op-ed, but also other reports that I've read, that neither the prisoners or the guards feel particularly safe at this point at Sousa. When you spoke with prisoners, what did you hear from them?
Definitely that they do not feel safe. There were lots of reports of assaults by the tactical team, which I want to clarify for people because I don't think people truly understand this. There are correctional officers who work at Sousa, and those are people who work there every day. That's their regular job. But then there's this tactical team, which is different. The tactical team is a group of outside officers who do not normally work there and who sort of patrol the facility right now, patrol the prison.
Because of what happened in January and the way that the guards were attacked?
Well, and interestingly, that's what we've been told, but what we're hearing from the prisoners is that the tactical team was actually present before that. So there's sort of this outside group that comes in. They have guns that shoot rubber projectiles, bean bags, pepper spray, they have tasers, and they also have dogs. And they monitor the prison, and if there are any problems, they're the ones that go in and take care of the situation. But taking care of the situation has led to dog bites, taser burns, a broken eye socket, lots of physical injuries. And so we're, trying to figure out why is this necessary? Why is it necessary that there's a tactical team that's roaming the halls of our maximum security prison?
I know you spoke with prison officials while you were there. Did you ask them that question? What did they say?
Well, the tactical team is actually not under the control of the superintendent. The superintendent is sort of the highest up person within the prison. The tactical team comes from outside the prison itself.
But did the supervisor say why the tactical team was allowed into the prison? I mean, conceivably, if they're in charge of the prison, right, they would have a say in that.
They would have a say, but the ultimate decision would come from higher up than the superintendent.
So no clear answer as to why the team's there or when they might leave.
Right, and particularly that, when they might leave.
So the Massachusetts Corrections Officer Federation Union has spoken out about the attacks and attributed them essentially to the criminal justice bill that was passed by the legislature. Mass Live was quoted, the union was quoted in Mass Live as saying that the attack was attributed to, quote, relaxed rules and regulations. Do you think that there's a connection between the criminal justice bill that was passed by the legislature last year and this attack at Sousa?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
The Criminal Justice Reform Act provided for some extra programming for people who are in DDU or in solitary in a disciplinary unit, and it gave them increased access to property. And when we're talking about property, we're talking about things like books and television, things that you have to buy. So we're not talking about any special privileges. There is no place at a maximum security prison that is luxurious. So it really just added some basic things back in to the disciplinary unit. It did other things as well, but primarily when we're talking about Sousa, The correctional officers are arguing sometimes prisoners are better off being in the disciplinary unit than they are being in the general population because they have greater access to programming and to this property. Now, that's true, but that doesn't mean that we then repeal the Criminal Justice Reform Act. It means we give people greater accessing to programming and property in general population. And the reason that we need to do that is really simple. The people who are in Sousa, for the most part, will someday return to our communities. And if we put people in small cells for 20 years and give them absolutely nothing to do, they feel unsafe, the correctional officers feel unsafe, they are not going to come out of that prison as better people. There is no sort of rehabilitation happening. Nothing good is happening. We are creating a toxic culture. And so the Criminal Justice Reform Act fixed a small part of it, but it didn't fix all of it. And really, I would take the exact opposite approach that the Correctional Officers Union has taken here, and I would say what they need to be advocating for is more programming for all prisoners, because if that doesn't happen, the situation is just going to get worse.
I could hear certain families of victims listening to what you're saying and hear them saying, well, they did something wrong to end up in prison. They're being punished for something they've done incorrectly.
Yes.
There's no recourse for my family for how I was wronged. Why should they get extra leniency or extra support?
So I absolutely hear what you're saying, but I want to bring us back to the idea of what a prison is. So we're talking about a cell that is much, much smaller than this room, where your access to basic phone calls and showers and just about anything is severely limited, where you don't really go out of that building, out of your cell without being shackled. We're not talking about giving somebody something that isn't a punishment. Being in this prison is a punishment. What we're trying to do is make sure that their time there then results in something better. Now, there are people who are serving life, but I need to emphasize most people there will be returning to our communities. And if I am the victim of a crime, the person who perpetrated that crime, I hope, when they are released from prison, is going to be a better person. Something will have been served from that time and from my having suffered the crime. If we're not doing anything for the people while we're there, we're not doing anything for the victims either.
Something else that's resulted from your visit there at the prison is you're advocating for 2 additional pieces of legislation. Yes. One is a Senator Barrett, a bill from him that would mandate the data use of force that's collected be made publicly available, that there be data collected on these instances that might occur. Right. Why do you support that?
Well, one of the first things we asked when we got to Sousa was how many uses of force had happened over the last month, and if that had gone up or gone down based on the lockdown. And the number of uses of force is I think, very high. They were talking about, the superintendent, I think, said there had been at least 25 reported, but there's no video footage of those uses of force. And so it is really important that we find out why this is occurring. Is this truly necessary? And how can we prevent that? Because again, it's not good. Violence begets violence. It's not good for violence to be occurring in our prisons at all in either direction. So we need to figure out how we can reduce that.